Welcome to
Only Murders in the Building,
the official podcast.
Join me, Michael Cyril Creighton, as we go behind the scenes with some of the amazing actors, writers, and crew from season 5.
The audience should never stop suspecting anything.
How can you not be funny crawling around on a coffin?
No, that's true.
Catch Only Murders in the Building official podcast, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party, as well as being the Chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. With us is our good friend, co-host, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, gentlemen, the old Chinese curse of living in interesting times keeps repeating itself. There's so much to talk about, but I want to modify interesting times. We are living in terrible times, just terrible times. The assassination, the political assassination of Charlie Kirk is just awful. Now, I met Charlie Kirk at least 3 times and was able to have conversations with him each of those times. Jesse, I don't know if you knew him at all.
I did not. I didn't have the pleasure of meeting him.
Okay, but I will tell you, this was such an extraordinary young man. He was like 31 or 32 years of age. He's bright, articulate, charming, a true patriot, loved America. He was a believer in traditional values, family and God and country. Wasn't an extreme right-wing zealot by any means, even though some media types are trying to portray him that way. All we wanted to do was have people have a civil, respectful conversation and ironically not resort to political violence and bullying and intimidation just so we could find common ground. That's what this young man stood for. So when I heard about this yesterday, my heart was broken because this kid was the future of common sense politics in America. So I respectfully submit to you, Jesse and Eric, this is not just a political assassination against an individual with a great future and who did good things for the country. And was a wonderful family man. This was an assassination of free speech, of common shared values, an assassination against true freedom, liberty, and respect for their fellow human beings. This is what that happened, and it breaks my heart to start off by saying we're living in treacherous, awful times, and my optimism is being seriously challenged. Jesse, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I was shocked as we learned about it, and first my heart and my prayers, and I think all of our heart and prayers go to Charlie Kirk's soul, and certainly his wife Erica and 2 children, and everyone that he touched. You know, I mean, for 13 years since he created Turning Point USA, and on a personal note, while I never had a chance to meet him, we were in the same circles, especially around the Republican National Conventions in 2024 and the presidential race. But what really attracted me to him was something several years ago. It was just coming across his debates on the college campuses, Prove Me Wrong tour on the college campuses. And I loved on YouTube. They had these shorts, and they really, truly introduced me to Charlie Kirk. And I loved watching how he debated these college students. And he didn't do it by name calling. He didn't do it by tearing them down. He was smart as a whip, and he embraced his those people who challenged his points of view. In fact, he encouraged them, as you know, people have said on many areas, to come to the front of the line, ask your questions. You know, there's no doubt that he boosted the youth vote and the next generation that assisted Donald Trump moving forward with that. But honestly, you know, he was a happy warrior who wanted to engage in dialogue, in political discourse, and do it in a meaningful way. He certainly is someone that we can credit not just on the politics side, but bringing a new face to conservatism, to making it touch base to the young people. I've always joked around that the young people in college, high school and college, are Democrats right up until they have to pay their taxes and their mortgage. Then there it's easier for me to get them as a Republican chairman here in Suffolk. But Charlie Kirk and those people, he was able to bring those people forward and bring them and connect with them. He used his faith. He used the fact his love his country. He used his beliefs of the importance of fiscal responsibility, a free market economy, and the importance because he realized just like he did, he wanted to have a family. He wanted to own his own home, and he didn't want to get saddled with the out of control debt and deficit that politicians in D.C. were giving them. Even the Democrats credit him for his huge following as he moved forward, and I always appreciated the way he addressed those people who had different viewpoints than him. I was impressed and how he was able to get a crowd going, not through name calling or tearing down the other side, by empowering his listeners, empowering his followers, and also sharing with them the benefits of our philosophies of liberty, family, owning a home, and being anti-COVID, seriously. He was able to speak about how an entire generation lost a big segment of their life and was never received an apology for what happened in COVID by masking them, by locking them down, by locking them out of schools and such. This is a great loss for our society. And one thing I will end with is this is yet another violent political act that needs to stop. And, the terror in this country needs to be brought down. We need to stop calling people we don't agree with Hitler and every evil name there is in the book. We can have a difference of ideas. We don't have to we don't have to engage in the politics of tearing us apart for the purposes of gaining a victory.
Thanks, Jesse. Eric.
So this show is going to air on Sunday, September 14th, but we are recording the show today on September 11th, a day we all remember. It was horrible. But what was the attack all about? The attack was on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania, which was heading to crash into the Congress. These attacks were designed to destroy Western civilization and our way of life, and basically the Judeo-Christian ethic that undergirds Western liberal societies, liberal in the traditional sense. The attack, the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk is an act of domestic terrorism. The goal of this perpetrator, of this terrorist, of this evildoer, whatever adjective you want to apply to him, is the same as the bastards that flew their planes into the World Trade Center. They're designed to destroy the American way of life. There's nothing more important, nothing that more defines than the United States than free speech, the First Amendment, the ability to be able to peacefully discuss and to impart your ideas to others. This wasn't just designed to silence Charlie Kirk. May his memory be a blessing. This was designed to silence all conservative thought. It's designed to silence all conservative speakers. It is designed to make sure that free speech is crushed. And the typical strategy for the left the radical progressive left is the only way to save free speech is to destroy it. The only way to save democracy is to destroy it. That's what this act of domestic terrorism is. I've never met Charlie Kirk. I've listened to him. I've been very impressed. I agreed with him on most things. There's some things we disagreed on. But as you both pointed out, it was his approach was always civil. It was always intellectual. It was to engage. It was to have a exchange of ideas. So this son, this father, this husband no longer is alive. It's really quite grotesque. And Richard, to your point, to both your points, this name calling has to stop. Donald Trump is not Adolf Hitler. Donald Trump is not trying to be a dictator. Donald Trump is not a totalitarian. He's a president. He's our president. He's everyone's president. And you may disagree with some of the things he does. He may go too far in some of the things he does. He may not go far enough in some of the things he does. He may say some things that get your back up. But he's the president of the United States, the duly elected, democratically elected president of the United States, and he's due the respect of that office. And when the radical progressive left tells the world, tells the American electorate that this man is going to destroy democracy, and they have to save it, that this man is Hitler, and they have to stop the Nazis, what do? They act like totalitarians. They act like Nazis. They engage in fascist conduct. That's how they try to stop this. If you look at the political violence we've been witnessing, yes, there's political violence on the right, no question, and that has to stop. But the majority, the overwhelming majority of the violent political activity is coming from the left. Antifa, BLM, the explosion of anti-Semitism in support of the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, and the attacks on Jews, and freedom of religion and freedom of thought and individual liberties. These come from the left. And I don't hear, other than finally now with Charlie Kirk, because it's so in your face, I don't hear Governor Newsom or Governor Pritchard or AOC or Bernie Sanders decrying these acts of violence. In fact, I hear them encouraging them in many ways. And that is really the problem. When you have elected officials that give you license, that give the American people license, lunatics license, to engage in this violent activity, what do we think is going to happen? Enough of the hand-wringing. If you have an idea, tell us what it is. And if you have a better idea, you'll win. If you have a crummy idea, as much of the left's ideas are, which are insane, you're going to lose. But the intimidation has to stop. And that's all this is. There is no difference from the bastard that shot Charlie Kirk to the animals that flew the planes into the World Trade Center. They are designed to destroy the American way of life and Western civilization, and we cannot be silent. We must stand up, we must push back, and we must win.
Well, that's very well said. What I call this is the normalization of political violence, normalization of talk of political assassination. You turn on the radio and television, and you have commentators saying, well, you know, he was an abrasive figure, he was a divisive figure, somehow he earned this. It was Charlie Kirk's fault. It was the Republicans' fault. It's the conservatives' fault. It was Trump's fault. It's disgusting. It's awful. First of all, they don't know the man. They don't know his record. They don't know what he stood for. But even if he was totally opposed to what you believed in, respect his right to say it and then debate it on the merits. Do not normalize political violence, because it only encourages the marginal characters in the country who need a license, they believe, an imprimatur, that this is okay, that they're somehow saving democracy by assassinating or intimidating their fellow human beings. They're dehumanizing their fellow Americans. This is a very dangerous phenomenon we're going through. And their pictures that just came out, was just horrifying, of some man, young kid, I wouldn't call him a man, some young kid at this event in Utah, and after Kirk is shot, and he's dying there because he was hit in the neck, in the artery, and there's no way, being hit that way, he could survive, and he's turning around and facing in the direction of where the shooter came from, and he's doing thumbs up and cheering, which raises a couple of questions. Who is he? What did he know? Was he part of this? Or is he just a savage who thinks that this is okay? If you're a savage and you think this is okay, then it's okay if somebody comes after you because they're on the other side and takes you out. That's not okay either. What do we want to do? Engage in warfare against ourselves? How does that work out? How did it work out in the Weimar Republic, when the left and the right both went into the streets, started assassinating the middle common sense people, each of the groups, the fascists, the Nazis, and the communists, each of them was absolutely committed to the view that they would win the fight in the streets. Well, only one won, and the communists wound up being sent to the concentration camps and being assassinated. So let's be very clear. This is a loss for America. It's a loss for Western civilization. It's a loss for civilized life. And as you gentlemen correctly point out, this has to stop, and it has to stop now. Now, I want to raise another issue about violence. There's a young woman who's a refugee, a migrant from Ukraine, who lived in a bomb shelter until she could get out of Ukraine because of the genocidal attack by Putin against the free people of Ukraine. She gets to the United States. She goes to North Carolina. She's working 2 jobs to support herself. She's on public transit, on a train. She's minding her own business. She's not challenging anybody. She's not being confrontational. She's literally sitting there checking, like all young people do, checking their iPhones or texting, minding her own business, trying to get through life, trying to get a new life here in America away from violence and despair. And some savage takes her life away from her, stabs her to death. Now, a couple of things about that. Did you see anybody on the video rush to her defense? No. Did you see anybody in the video rush to give her medical comfort to try to stop the bleeding? No. Now, whose fault is this? It's the fault of a system that says anything goes. It's the fault of a system, legislators, governors, judges, who thinks everybody has a right to go out there and do their own thing, and some called decarceration movement, which means let everybody out and do whatever the hell you want to do, is okay. Well, it's not okay. If you're going to have a civilized society, you have to have law and order, you have to have public safety. The first obligation of government is to provide public safety and law and order and protect its people. If they do not do that, they have no moral legitimacy to govern. And the idea that this character, who had clear mental issues, was out on the streets after 14 violent crimes, was let out by a judge with a sign and release nonsense, where he either should have been in jail for all the violent crimes he perpetrated, or in a mental institution getting mental care and attendance. Some people should not be walking the streets. Let me say it again. You don't like it? Too bad, so sad. There are people amongst us who are indeed dangerous, violent monsters who will take your life and that of your family and your friends, and they have to be contained. Deterrence and containment has to be done. Eric, your thoughts?
I agree with everything you say. This is what you get with the criminal justice reform of the left. The decarceration is just, as you point out, just the freeing of criminals, the turning the streets back over to the criminals, and having law-abiding citizens having to cower in their homes. Look, there's really not too much more to say about that, but the one point I'll add is the exact policies that allowed this guy out after 14 arrests to assault this poor woman who was doing nothing, whose only crime was, fleeing Ukraine for safety and being a good American resident. This guy should never have been out. But this is the policy that put him out on the street is going to be the exact same policy that Zoran Mondani is advocating for New York. If you want to have an uptick, a significant uptick in this kind of violent crime, of criminals walking the streets free to prey on the average citizen, vote for Zoran Mondani, because this is what he's advocating. Just keep that in mind.
This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator, essayist, and attorney Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in but a few moments with more interesting and important conversation.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
Leading a business today means constantly adapting. On the Executive Insights podcast, brought to you by AWS, global leaders share how they're making tough calls, testing bold ideas, and putting innovation into practice, generative AI included. If you're looking for real stories behind what's working, this is it. Subscribe to the Executive Insights podcast today, available now on all major podcast platforms.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is Let the Record Show. We're back with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, I want to talk about this drones over Poland and the fact that you had unified action by NATO in taking down these drones that were deep into Polish territory, I think about 150 miles into Poland.
It was no accident.
No accident.
No accident.
Clearly intentional. Russia is spitting in our faces. They're testing it. They do this as a gambit to see the response time of the NATO forces. I think it's time for Trump to wake up. And as you know, my view about Donald Trump is when he's right, I agree with him. And when he's wrong, I call him out. I'm not a Trump apologist, nor am I suffering from Trump derangement disease, that syndrome, which is just stupid and awful. I believe that he's trying to do a good job in a lot of ways. I believe that he wants peace above everything else. But sometimes the recognition has to be that you can't get peace one-sided. You need to have people on both sides who want the peace. The idea that after Trump meets with him and he promises they're going to have peace talks and he jerks that around and he's laughing at us and he increases the violence and the destruction against Ukraine, and then he does these overreaches over Poland. And the good news is that the Polish Air Force and the NATO forces and the Dutch Air Force, backed by some intelligence by the Italians and the Spanish, did something to rebut this incursion. That's a good thing. Now everybody says, oh, could be awful. This could be the beginning of World War III. Look, the great lesson of our times is appeasement does not work unless you believe success is capitulating and let the aggressors take over. Jesse, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I think that this is not a bad thing. It is. We know that it's Russia testing the limits of NATO and its allies in the United States. We know that he's thumbing his nose at the United States. But to take up on your remarks, that the response of NATO and its neighboring countries is what is critical there in the response of that. I think that the time has come, and if there's not one more demonstration that Putin is not to be trusted, and that the president truly has, to his degree, and even further than his degree, I believe that if he looks at it honestly, is that he's given Putin and Russia every opportunity to come to the table to bring an end to this peacefully. It has not happened. I believe that I've said this many times on this show, especially most recently. The time is now that Trump needs to demonstrate the will of the American people and move forward to defending its allies and pushing them in the only way that Russia knows is through a little bit of like a punch in the nose to a bully, is to push them into understanding that they need to get to the table or else they're going to be significant consequences. Those consequences can come both militarily, both through additional arms to Ukraine. It could be in the United States becoming a stabilizing force and a defense force as part of NATO and the European Union for Ukraine to keep Russia on the other side of that border. And of course, it's the secondary sanctions. It's been that legislation has been sitting around. It's been ready to be triggered.
It's got to be done. Pass the legislation on secondary sanctions and start implementing it. Why are we implementing secondary sanctions against India, okay, and not doing it against Russia and China? What am I missing here?
It's time to pass it. It's time to sign it, and it's time to execute it. Because I honestly do see this as a situation, just as as China was watching the response between Israel and the United States as it pertained to Iran, and we took bold action then. I believe that they're watching this now. Again, continue to watch and see how far Trump, a new bold leader for the United States that does not support appeasement, is going to act when these type of issues are he's confronted with these issues. It's important now, unfortunately, that we need to move in a way that's committed to blunting this force in the strongest possible means, economically and through our military. Excuse me.
Eric, your thoughts?
There is no question that Vladimir Putin is not giving up his designs on Ukraine ever. And it is, I agree with the two of you 100%. It is time for the president to take the next step and come to the realization that you cannot reach a deal with Putin unless you surrender. And surrender, of course, is not an option. Look, Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal have a bill for very tough secondary sanctions legislation that has the support of 80 senators. 80. How many things can you get the U.S. Senate to agree on to this degree? 80 senators. It is time to pass it and put it on the president's desk and have him sign it. We've got to start upping our game in terms of getting weapons to Ukraine as quickly as possible, whatever they need. Stop putting limits on their use. You want to guarantee that there's World War III? Be weak. Appease. Surrender. Weakness begets aggression. You want to increase the likelihood that Putin will step down, step back? Arm Ukraine. Be aggressive. Look, there will be no support for American troops, American boots on the ground in Ukraine to defend it. And I agree with that, but there should be no American boots on the ground. But we've got to, that's up to Europe if they want to do that. But we've got to be arming them. That's where we come in. And we can provide intelligence, and we've got to provide munitions. And people will make the argument, well, we're running out of munitions here. And that's 100% true. But what that argues for is we need to start invigorating the American industrial complex. We need to start making weapons like we did during World War II. We're at a crisis point. China's had this great military parade with Putin and Kim Jong-un of North Korea, showing off their hardware. They're prepared. They're getting prepared. But we're not. We don't have enough planes. We don't have enough ships. We don't have enough munitions. We don't have enough Marines. We don't have enough Navy seamen, Air Force pilots. We just don't have enough of any of it. We have to start investing in American military might. Yes, we're the strongest nation on earth, but not by enough. Not by enough. We need to be able to fight two-front wars, and we need to be able to fight to win and confident that we're going to win. And we need to be so powerful that nobody wants to challenge us. The way we know we're not powerful enough is because we're being challenged around the globe. Iran was challenging us in the Middle East. Thank goodness the Israelis pushed back. Russia's challenging us in Ukraine, and China's challenging us in the Pacific. We are not prepared. We do not have the deterrent effect that we used to have, and we need to regain it.
So let me switch gears, John, because you just had an attack by Israel in Qatar against the Hamas terrorist leadership in Qatar. Now, again, worldwide condemnation of this. Again, an attempt
what a shock.
Again, attempt to marginalize and ostracize Israel. So let me ask you this question. You have a terrorist organization that sits there in 5-star hotels.
And jacuzzis. They got a corner on the jacuzzi market.
Listen, they have everything. They have the best food. They have the best wine, even though it's contrary to their religion. They have the best beautiful women. And if their choice is the best beautiful men, it's all there for them in Qatar. They are protected by the regime in Qatar. Qatar has been playing a double game, a triple game, maybe a quadruple game. Somehow we believe that Qatar is our ally. Qatar is not our ally. Qatar is the one that supplied the financial resources and the engineering, scientific technology to build the underground tunnel system under Gaza. There would be no such thing for the Hamas to live in and to act their terrorist acts against the state of Israel but for Qatar money and Qatar support in engineering and science. So let's be very, very clear. They play a double game. Now, they're outraged. They say, oh, you've just hit a sovereign, independent nation that you're not at war with. I submit to you, when you harbor terrorists, and remember, Hamas is an internationally designated terrorist organization, when you harbor that and you allow them to live gloriously while people, both Jews and the Israeli community, whether it's Jewish or Muslim, are exterminated on the October 7th attack, and you have ongoing attacks constantly, you are fair game under the rules of war. You do not say, oh, but they were just negotiating. The game has always been to jerk it around, to have negotiations. Meanwhile, they keep killing the hostages, putting them on display, humiliating them. I say enough was enough. It's about time Israel did that. Now, Netanyahu is going to get international condemnation and even opposition within the own state of Israel. And even the White House said, oh, they shouldn't have done it. Well, what are you going to do after a while when Hamas just was behind this attack in Jerusalem that killed 6 people? You think that just happened randomly? All this stuff, all this violent act is part of a cohesive, coordinated attack against the state of Israel. Qatar can no longer hide that the so-called independent, impartial negotiators. Their people support the Islamic Brotherhood. They're allied with the Islamic Brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood. This is dangerous stuff, and we need to confront that. And it's about time Netanyahu did something. Eric.
Yeah, for the most part, I agree with everything you say.
For the most part, okay. I'll take for the most part.
Okay. Look, the key term here is Muslim Brotherhood. That's the key term. Qatar is the lifeblood, the funder of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is an organization, as we've discussed on the show before, created in the 1920s in Egypt. It's a national socialist movement. It's a Nazi movement. It is the ideological parent of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas. It is designed to destroy. It exists to destroy Western civilization. It exists to spread Sharia law around the world, to kill Jews, to kill Christians, and Qatar is the primary funder of all of this. And Hamas has been in. They make it sound as if Hamas was somewhere else, and all of a sudden they're just using their good offices to allow Hamas to come and meet as part of these ceasefire negotiations. These guys live there. The attacks of October 7th were planned there. Whether or not, Qatar participated in that, I don't know. But we do know, to Richard's point, that they fund Gaza. You'll remember after every Israel-Gaza war, Israel-Hamas war, after every single one, who negotiates on behalf of Hamas? Qatar and Turkey, 2 Muslim Brotherhood countries. And who negotiates supposedly on the Israeli behalf? Egypt. And, so that because the Muslim Brotherhood is illegal in Egypt. Just to tell you what a great friend Qatar is to the rest of the Arab world, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates from time to time break diplomatic relations with Qatar because they support Muslim Brotherhood, and Qatar actively works to undermine those regimes. So these aren't good people. Now, the Israelis attacked Hamas inside in Doha. There's no question about it. Qatar is an independent country, no doubt about it. But these are people that killed 1,200 Jews in the worst attack against Jews since the Holocaust. Israel has a moral obligation to kill them, to defend their people. They found them, they found out where they were, and they attempted to assassinate them. The jury's out. I'm still waiting to hear who in fact they got. We know they got at least 5 or 6 of the second level folks. It's an open question. It has not been determined whether or not they got the top level people. But whether they got them or not, it was the right thing to do for one reason and one reason alone. They know there's no safe harbor for them. There's no place they can hide. Eventually, they're going to meet Allah. The Israelis are going to hunt them down wherever they are. And it's a message to other countries around the globe, don't harbor these people because we're coming to get them. Now, in terms of these negotiations regarding a ceasefire, look, my view is ceasefire, schmeasefire. Israel needs to win the war. That's how it needs to end. We weren't working for a ceasefire with Japan. We wanted to win the war. We weren't working for a ceasefire with Hitler and the Nazis. We're in it to win the war. Unconditional surrender. That's what the Israelis need to achieve. So I'm not sure the idea that this horror show has happened because now there's going to be no ceasefire negotiations. These ceasefire negotiations were going nowhere. Hamas was never going to give up all the hostages because that's the only leverage they have. Their goal was to stay in power at some point, and Qatar was working actively to try to make sure a vestige of Hamas survived and could have a hand in post-war Gaza. These guys they're no better than the Swiss during World War II. The Swiss were supposedly neutral. They were the Nazis' bankers, and to this day, they still have gold teeth and money from the Jews that the Nazis killed.
This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in about a few moments with more important and interesting conversation in our final segment of this week's show.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, one of the great threats we have is narco-terrorist states, Venezuela. Part of that is Mexico as well. The United States has finally decided that they have to take the fight to these narco-terrorist states. And they blew out of the water on a couple of occasions these boats that were bringing illicit drugs into the United States. Now, people say, oh, where's the due process? That's not fair. You should have arrested them. No. When people are terrorists, and these are terrorist organizations, these cartels and these gangs, they're designated as terrorist organizations, they are fair game. Repeat that. They are fair game under international law. The United States has a right to protect itself. You say, well, what was the harm? The harm is that you have over 100,000 people every year dying through the poison of fentanyl in the United States.
50,000 a year.
50,000 a year. A couple of 100,000 in the last few years.
Yeah, that's 2 years of Vietnam deaths.
Yeah, it's staggering. And Jesse, during the break, had a great point. And so I want you to talk about that. You start talking about the Bush doctrine. And this it seems to me, Jesse, and I want your thoughts on this, it seems to me that when you're talking about going after the Venezuela cartels or gangs, that we have to understand that we have an ability to go after them in their home bases.
Exactly. I mean, we were talking about Israel and Netanyahu's decision to go after the Hamas leaders in Qatar. I agree that Israel needs to follow these leaders, get them wherever they are.
Okay, Jesse,
yes, sir.
I have to break in. I apologize. We have Mayor Eric Adams, the great mayor of the city of New York. Mr. Mayor, are you there?
How are you?
All right. So this is your dinner companion, Judge Richard Weinberg, with noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine, and Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Vice Chair of the State Republican Party. Welcome to Let the Record Show. I have to tell you, Mr. Mayor, what a great honor and privilege it is to have you on our show.
Thank you. Really kind of you.
So I will tell the audience my thoughts about the man, Eric Adams. I find him to be a man of great ability, integrity, experience. I find him to be a common sense person you can have a real conversation with. I find him to be a patriot who truly loves America and truly loves the city. I think he's done, after a couple of bad sledding at the beginning, he's done an excellent job as mayor of the city. He has a police commissioner who's absolutely first rate. He has a deputy mayor, first deputy mayor, absolutely first rate. I think you have a vision to keep this city safe and its economy growing. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to turn you over now to Eric Levine, and I'll come back to you, and then Jesse will come back to you.
So, thank you for your kind words. Really appreciate that, and I think that's very descriptive of where my heart is. I love the city. It's not a bumper sticker. It's not a slogan. It's real for me, and I'm going to continue to be a voice in the city.
So, Mr. Mayor, this is Eric Levine. I just, in the interest of full disclosure, it should come as no surprise to anyone. I have been a very strong supporter of yours throughout the campaign, and I remain
as I have,
and I remain a strong supporter. And I wish you the best of luck in your reelection. But to that point, I can't tell you how many times people come up to me and ask me, "You're supporting the mayor. What's his path to victory? How does he get there?" They're hearing all kinds of terrible things about deals that are being made, people dropping out, 2 or 3 people in the race. Mamdani wins. So what do you tell the New York voter? What's your path to victory?
And that's so important, that question that's being asked. And it's amazing when you think about the undermining of our campaign and what I've gone through these last few months. And really, since the beginning of the election, I always tell New Yorkers, go back and read through how I have been covered from the beginning of my election. Because of my common sense approach, my pro-public safety, my pro-business, this is a city where mayors, for the most part, were extremely the far left or a very liberal city. And so my common sense approach rubbed a lot of people the wrong way around public safety and other issues. But when you look now and say, okay, well, what's your path to victory? It's ironic that 7 weeks out from the primary, Poly Markets showed Andrew Cuomo winning by 87%. He had a 20-point lead on Mamdani in the race. No one was calling him to step out. And if he would have stepped out, we would have prematurely had a Democratic primary winner. And when we look at all these polls, these are the same polls that had Andrew up by almost 36% at one point, in the day before election by 10 points. And the pathway to victory is to do something that I've never been able to do before. Use my campaign dollars to now tell my story. I wasn't able to do that before. Campaign Finance Board took $4 million from me. I was not able to do what you traditionally do in races, and that is get your message out. Having $8 million to tell your story, you're able to get your message out. When I go to town halls and other events and share, even with insiders, what we have done, I hear this all the time. Wow, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware that there are more jobs in New York in the city's history. I'm not aware of what you guys have done around public safety and what you have done around education. My story has yet to be told, and I got to have voters hear that story and then find the right message to give to them.
So the question, I guess, then is, and I agree with all of that, what you're saying, and I think you have a great message to tell, but can you win if both Cuomo and Sliwa stay in the race?
It makes it harder. But let's think about this for a moment, which is so important. Everyone is given the impression that all of a sudden Mamdani had the overwhelming support of not only Democrats but voters. That's just not true. 2.5 million Democrats did not vote. 1 million independents, hundreds of thousands of Republicans have yet to vote. And so when you do the numbers, you clearly see that all those who were excited about his campaign, they came out and they voted. I think this is going to be one of the highest voter participations in the history of our city. because there's so much passion on both sides. Does it become difficult with Curtis, Andrew, and myself in the race? Yes, it does. But I am clear that November is a long way off. We saw how these races change and shift. I was 14 points behind Andrew Yang at one time in my race. And, coming back is not new to me. And I know how to campaign. The most important thing I can do is get my message out there. And Cuomo created this scenario. He knew. I announced that I was running in the general election. I announced that. We knew Mandani was going to be in the general election because he was going to be on the Wilkins family line. So this scenario that we're seeing was created by Andrew.
Well, I think that's, Mr. Mayor, it's Richard Weinberg again. I agree with that, and I think this is the problem. This is my characterization. I don't have the audacity to speak for you. But my characterization of Zohran Mamdani is as follows. He's a clear and present danger to the city of New York, the state of New York, and the country. He's an apologist for Islamist radical terrorism. He hangs around and is supported by people who believe that 9/11 was justified. He's an advocate for socialism. He has no real experience. He's anti-cop. He's anti-law enforcement. And the fact of the matter that people would actually consider voting for a character like this makes my eyes bleed and my head explode. My problem is, as I go around and people talk to me, as you know, from all walks of life, given what I do these days, and they say to me, well, Mamdani's not so bad. We can live with him. And I submit to them that you can't live with him. When a man stands for all these ridiculous propositions, these dangerous propositions, the word has to get out. The negatives on this guy have to get out. And Andrew Cuomo, who had, $30 million or $40 million to spend in his primary, never got the message out. And how are you going to do that, Mr. Mayor? How are you going to get the message out that we have this clear and present danger to our city?
And I really appreciate your assessment because it baffles me that people don't see what you just explained. He is associated with the DSA, Democratic Socialist Parties, and others that hate our way of life. I don't know if people are really understanding that. They hate our way of life. They believe the greatest country on the globe is not a country that its way of life is beneficial to the globe. Like, no one is lining the borders to leave America. They're lining the borders to come in America. And many of them are fleeing socialist and communist countries. And you're right. Getting that very easy interpreted message. Because if we get too intellectual and down as policy wonks, it is not going to hit the everyday working class people. We have to explain in a very user-friendly manner what allowing 3,000 dangerous prisoners out of Rikers Island actually mean. We need to talk about what legal or decriminalized prostitution really mean in sex trafficking and having young boys and girls selling their bodies on the streets. We have to be very clear about not sending officers to domestic violence incidents, where that's one of the top charges. One of the top incidents that officers are injured. And so I have to use my dollars for television ads, social media, mail-ins, some of the non-traditional and traditional methods of communicating with voters in a simple way, not in an intellectual way, not talking over or down to people, but giving them a basic understanding of how his victory will impact on their lives. And then it has to be discussed based on the communities. When I say communities, I don't mean geographical locations. I have to talk to my bodega owners and independent supermarkets, Korean independent supermarkets, Dominican, Chinese, so many of them, how his government grocery stores are going to impact them. I have to speak to the black and brown community to talk about how we brought down crime, and now the things he's going to do is going to return those dangers to their community. And believe it or not, I have to talk to people who are formerly living in socialist and communist countries. They fled communism and socialism. I have to speak directly to them. So it's a combination of a non-traditional campaign that we have to run to get people out to the polls.
Mr. Mayor, I want to turn you over to Jesse Garcia, the Vice Chair of the State Republican Party and the County Chair out in Suffolk. Jesse, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for joining us, and it was good to have you in the Hamptons just recently to do some fundraising. I'm hoping you received the funds you needed there. Just tell me how you're speaking about going to sharing a message. I mean, how is it that the city of New York, unfortunately, you have two opponents that one is a confirmed communist who's anti-Semitic, and the other one is a disgraced former governor forced to resign and is responsible for the death of so many seniors and so many of our family members in nursing homes. How is that message penetrating there? That this is the choice that the voters have. These two individuals versus a mayor that has worn the uniform as a police officer in his past.
And it's such a great question. And we have turned around the city. If you look at every poll or every indicator on what is a successful administration, economy, we turned around the economy. More jobs in New York in the history of the city. Broadway had the best 12 months in its recorded history. Look at public safety, the lowest numbers of homicides and shootings in the first 6 months of this year. Since 2024, we've seen a consistent decrease in crime. Education, we're outpacing the state in reading and math. Drop unemployment. Put $30 billion back into the pockets of working class people. When you look at all of these indicators, that's why bond raters raise my bonds, because of how we manage out of COVID, manage out of migrants and asylum seekers, manage out of crime. What we must understand, I'm pretty sure you can appreciate, we almost see the dumbing down of America, of where these sound bites, social media has been a game change on what people see as the truth and the untruth. The truth no longer matters, and you could articulate to people how you have improved their quality of life, but there's a lot of anger out there, number one. And number two, we're seeing a real radicalization of our young people. I keep talking about this, and it seems like it's not penetrated. Our young people are being radicalized not to love our country anymore. And if you don't have a good farm team, using a sports analogy, then who the heck is going to wear the uniform to take us to the next level? And when you speak to some of our young people on college campuses, in the streets, as we think about 9/11, we have young people who saying that we deserve to have been attacked. They've been praising bin Laden on some of these social media networks. So how do we regain the common sense approach to governing the cities and understand how this impacts our lives every day?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I want to conclude by saying this. Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and I are honored and privileged to have you on the show. More importantly, we're honored and privileged to have a man like you who served this city, this state, and this country well, whether wearing the uniform of NYPD or as a state senator or the borough president of Brooklyn, which would have been one of the largest cities in the country if it was an independent city, and as our mayor. I submit that your record is exemplary, that your character is exceptional, that you've been a victim of the worst kind of unfair lawfare against you, which has hurt you, obviously, in the polls. I think what they've done to you at the Campaign Finance Board is absolutely reprehensible, and it's illegal. It's improper. They've interfered with an election they shouldn't have. They had no business withholding funds from you. But I want to wish you, on behalf of Chairman Garcia and Eric Levine and myself, every good wish in your campaign, every good wish for your future success. Your success is New York City's success, and I want to thank you for being on our show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And I think that when you do an analysis as you have just accomplished, they couldn't beat me at the poll. They knew my ability to run the city, and I have run it, and to get voters. Started out with terrible coverage of our successes, then went to a lawfare. I mean, it's unbelievable when you read the indictment and see what I was being charged with, but just doing my job. Never, no bags of money, no bars of gold, none of that. And then when you look at the campaign finance board not giving me $4 million to run my race, and then the constant rumors that will hurt your fundraising. You know, you guys understand the profession of politics. When stories are constantly coming out, well, he's leaving, no matter what you say. This is all undermining the working class mayor of using all the systems possible when you can't be someone at the poll, you to continue to undermine their campaign. But I'm resilient. I'm steadfast. I don't sit down and say, woe is me. I say, why not me? And, you know, we're resilient as New Yorkers, and I'm going to continue to fight for the city that I love. Mr. Mayor, once again, thank you very, very much. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless your efforts to win in November. Thank you. Take care, guys. Great speaking with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and we're indeed honored and privileged to have the mayor of the city of New York, Eric Adams, on our show for this final segment. I know Mayor Adams well. I've been with him on many occasions. I broke bread with him. I have a lot of respect and affection for him, and I think he's been treated unfairly in many, many instances, and he has a real track record of success for this city, and people should keep that in mind. This has been Let the Record Show. God bless you, God bless your families, and, of course, God bless America. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show with Judge Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia, and Eric Levine. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?